Well, here we are again, Craig and Jane, the psychics, welcoming you to our show. What are we going to be talking about tonight, Jane? We're taking some questions, aren't we?
We're going to talk about a bit of this, a bit of that, and everything.
Yeah. All your questions tonight, whatever is on your mind, you can ask us questions. We put a few up already from the patrons and the YouTube members, but you know, as the show goes on, we want your questions about all things paranormal, all things to do with the spirit world, all about spirituality, whatever you like. You can ask us a question. So, welcome to the Craig and Jane Show. Well, here we are.
Indeed.
What are we going to talk about? We're going to have to see what questions come up. We've got quite a few interesting questions come in, and those of you that are just joining us, if you are a patron, you can always have a look in the description below of this video, or you're a YouTube member, you can always a big button under your video, you can become a member. You can ask us questions, and when you, oh, thank you, someone's just given us a donation. New member, thank you very much, Linda, good to see you. So you become a member and you can post some questions, and we seed a few of those at the start of the show just as people are warming up, but we also take your live questions as well, of course, you know, so things like that.
I thought for a minute you was going to say we also take your money.
Scotland, lots coming in from all over the place at the moment. Good morning to you, Western Australia.
Oh, lovely.
Yes, good morning. Good evening here, of course. And hi, everyone from Toronto. And hi, both.
Annie.
Right, good to see you all, guys. Thanks for coming in live. Don't forget, we tried to bring this show out on a Friday at 7 o'clock. Things will change in 2025 quite a lot, mind you. Hi, both of you, Linda, UK. So well, let's see what questions we got coming up tonight, folks. Then, so we got these. This would be one. When it's got a little M plus at the end of it, you'll see the pictures come up. When it's got a little M plus, it means it's been seeded by one of the members somewhere along on either sort of group. So, question. Oh, one for you, Jane.
Wow,
you got the first one.
Some are born with mediumship abilities, but how much can others develop their intuition? I connect mentally with loved ones, and I'm working on recognised spirit signs. Some are born with mediumship ability. I think some people are creative people, I've noticed, Craig, and very sensitive people. They seem to pick up a lot, very much with the clairvoyance and everything. I had a lovely nurse that came yesterday, and she said, as a young child, I can remember under my mother's table, I must have been about 3.5, and said, I keep seeing a man with yellow hair and yellow teeth.
That's a sign.
That is a sign, indeed. It's a sign. And the mother said, well, there is a man like that at the end of the road. And then she said, I had all these feelings and that. And, you know, I've noticed with most nurses, they are quite psychic. And I think just go with what your senses are telling you. Mediumship, I've noticed there seem to be an awful lot of people that state they're mediums, and they seem to want to be a celebrity status or on Facebook or on different platforms, but really it's a service to help others and to connect, and it must always be evidential proof. None of this fluffiness. I've got an angel card here, and I've got a loved one trying to connect with you. You actually have to have proof of that loved one, and we're quite strict, Craig and I, that when clientele come to us, we have to meditate for half an hour, and I don't want people to tell me anybody that they want to connect with. It's got to come through naturally, and then that person can say what that person is saying to them, if it's true or not. It might be simple things like, I've got your father here, you show me a teddy bear and it's got a heart on it. Yes, my father gave that to me on Valentine's Day. My father that passed over, it should be like that. So I think with mediumship, I feel it is a gift, and I feel you've got to be true, and it's integrity, and you've got to listen to the spirit realm, and you've got to listen very carefully and closely, and then give the evidence proof. With your intuition, I feel trust your intuition, trust what you're feeling, trust what you're getting, and just go with the flow. And then if you're hearing clairaudiently, your clairsentience in the solar plexus here, and you're actually seeing things. I mean, with my mediumship, I actually see things over people's face. It might be not transfiguration, but it might be letters of the alphabet, or it might be something crazy. It might be a shopping list, or it might be animals or something that's related to that person to give them proof. I call it my psychic TV screen.
Yeah, I'd also add to this. I see they've also said about, and I'm working on recognising spirit signs. I mean, I suppose you're saying there things like, oh, a robin tapped the window, or the clouds look this shape or other. I think when you're doing mediumship, you've got to do it all from within, haven't you, really? And not be looking, saying, not necessarily looking outside of yourself for signs and symbols of spirit, because that ties in with what you were saying about people saying, oh, I've got a card that suggests such and such is on the spirit side. That's completely pointless. All mediumship comes through intuition, some sort of special form of intuition, really, clairvoyance we call it, but it comes through that inner knowing. And as you develop as a medium, each medium will work differently, but you'll just know it. Like Jane says, she sees something across someone's face, you say, don't you?
Yes, I do.
Or sometimes even sometimes if you're demonstrating on what we call the platform or a theatre stage, you'll start taking on the gestures of that person, or the facial expressions of that person, or start rubbing your shoulder, and you think, oh, that's they died, broken their shoulder or something, you know, what I mean. You start unconsciously reflecting the spirit person, what they're giving to you. A lot of mediumship does come from the unconscious, I think. I had a reading last December. She said there's a move for you in 2024 and you've got a new key coming. Turns out the council changed my front door and gave me a new door key.
I had a read last December. She said there's a move for you and you'll get a new key coming. Turns out they changed my front door and gave me a new door key. Oh, thank you for that. Thank you for that. That's good to know.
Yeah, but that's good, isn't it? And it's amazing how spirit does pick up on things like that, and this, you know, and when these things happen, sometimes they can be really, really specific, really specific. My mother, father, and grandfather were mediums. Oh, were they, Alex? And they've just made the picture disappear. My sister and I have the gift, but we don't use it for personal reasons. I prefer clairsentience and dreams.
Yeah, we can't use our gifts for our personal self, because in our human form, shall we say, we have to just, like everybody else, deal with it. You can't use the spirit world to, are we going to win a court case? Are we going to do this and that?
Yeah, we can't
got to
see for
go
ourselves.
with that.
I don't think that's strictly what she's saying there, but she says she's got issues where she can't use it for some reason or other. But that's true, though. That's important, isn't it?
Yeah, but she prefers clairsentience, she sense. That's very good, very good. And dreams, and that's very good that she's doing that. Her mother, father, and grandfather were mediums. Well, my grandmother wasn't a medium. She was more, I should say, intuitive and that. But she did pick things up. But that's good. That's all gone through the different generations.
Yeah, it is. I agree with that. I will try again. I posted before flashing my question. Oh, well done. It's all right. You can put them in more than once if you're coming in, because often they go down the stream and we miss them. Matt will. I'm hopefully coming out the other side of a spiritual awakening, which has been very painful. Does it ever end? Well, I think when you do develop mediumship, I mean, other mediums will probably say much the same. You go through a bit of a crisis period. Your sensitivity opens up really fast, and it means that you're very sensitive to things happening around you. And I think also you're tested for your compassion, and mediumship particularly requires people to go through quite a lot of pain. Quite often people might lose someone very close to them. Doris Stokes lost a child. Keith Charles, I think, who we worked with once, he lost his child, didn't he?
A son, an older son.
A nice man, good medium. And others, they quite often have some tragedy that spurred them on. I in fact think of quite a few other mediums that we know as well that people wouldn't know about. But often some terrible thing will come into your life when you develop mediumship. So when people say, I want to be a medium, I want to be a medium, I think, well, actually, if only you knew what you actually bring into your life with that, actually, because it will bring challenges at the beginning point, and you will then overcome those things, and you would have learnt the empathy you need. I think it does. I think it's part and parcel of being a medium.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean to say just because you've got bad things happening that you're necessarily mediumistical, having an awakening.
Annie,
conversely,
do a mantra. Be fearless. Think. Be a woman, but think like a man. But be fearless and fight like a tigress. That's my mantra.
Yeah, tear them to bits. Yeah.
Actually, naturally.
Yeah. Is it true that a single spirit can be in one or more readings at once and at the same time?
I can't see that.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, when we've worked on platform before, we both picked the same person up at the same time, and there's often that. And I'm sure I've known instances where, yeah, the same spirit has come through. When I did my circles, for example, we had the same spirit come through at my circle, and we were comparing notes with another circle somewhere else that was sitting at the same time, and they had the same spirit come to them. So they jumped from our circle to their circle.
So was that
to give a proof.
Was that spirit a split personality? Then?
No, they were in two places at the same time. You know.
Well, I was putting that down to Sai Baba. He can be in two places.
Well, yeah, that's true. And actually, the spirit world can do, because I mean, it's not limited by time and space, is it, Nana? Really, I mean, it's
different reality.
I mean, we're dealing with a different level of reality, and I think the same thing happens, like you say, when they talk about the omnipresence of highly enlightened beings. They can be in multiple people's dreams at the same time, or giving different information at the same time. And I'm sure the spirit world has that same agility. Bits. When you do a reading, do you take your mind down to zero thought? How do you do that?
Well, when you do a reading, you have to have a clear mind, be nice and quiet and peaceful, and the person that's opposite you, you're tuning in immediately. I tune in, I look at the auras, and I have open up my chakras, and then I just see images go over their face, and it just happens. And the thing is, the more a person speaks to you, the more the energy builds up and it flows. But if you've got a blocker like one of these trying to block you like that, then it's just not going to work anyway, is it, Craig?
Yeah, but I do like to say get into the zone.
Zone?
Yeah, the zone. You're in the zone when you're sort of tuned in to something. I'm not tuned in all the time, and you're not tuned in all the time,
I don't want to be tuned in.
No, because we'd be
all the time.
exhausted for one thing. So we have to get our mind. I think it's different to what you're doing in normal meditation, as it were, where like Anattana Mona and things like that, where you take the mind down to a very, very peaceful state, and you do that by observation of the thoughts, watching the thoughts, and then just letting the thoughts go until the thoughts have completely dissipated. And there's lots of levels of the way they will teach those sort of techniques. I certainly get into a very quiet state, then I get into a kind of a very sensitive state. I certainly open up my spirit body, because I feel the spirit body completely open up, and the spinal column become a light. Feels like it's lit up like a neon tube almost. And then I'm in a very, very sensitive state. And then I sit, I'm quiet, and I listen to my inner dialogue, which is no longer my inner dialogue, as it were. It's like an inner dialogue of someone saying something to you. Hi Craig, we're here. We'll be all right. This is going to be this. We're going to try to get that person. I've got the mother here. You start hearing it as a slightly separate to you thought, not like some crazy thought of a nutcase. Although in my case it might be, but you hear it like you've separated yourself from the train of thought, as it were, from the inner dialogue. But that has to come from a deep state of inner peace.
Right. Mark, hi Craig and Jane. Did your parents have mediumship abilities? No, my mother didn't, my father didn't, my grandmother did, because on my grandmother's side they were all army nurses, so she definitely did have second sight and definitely did tune into things. Because I remember when I was 13 years old, I saw a lady standing at the top of the stairs in my grandmother's house, and an old-fashioned uniform, and I said to my grandmother at the time, who's that lady standing at the top of the stairs? She said, come and sit down. That was my sister Alice, she got killed in the Second World War. A bomb fell on her, and she was a matron. And she said, you mustn't tell people you see or hear spirit, because they think you've got religious hallucinations. I mean, I was only 13 then. That's enough to frighten you to death. But no, she was. People used to come and knock the door and ask for advice, and then she used to help people. In those days, they used to get tea leaves and turn them upside down in an old-fashioned cup and saucer and look. And she did have a crystal ball, and then she used to see images in it, pictures like clouds, and suddenly tell me things. And then she used to hear things from the other side, and then tell me things like that. I don't know about you, Craig.
Well, there's been some in the family, but I don't actually think that the family line is necessarily important at all for developing mediumship. It might be. Maybe there's certain propensity to mediumship in the genes. My grandmother's mother, Irish O'Leary, she was supposed to be mediumistic because Nan used to say she had the gift. But I wouldn't have said, and my dad was perhaps a bit energetically like that. I mean,
a medium,
but he would never have been a medium, no. And I think all the family and our children seem to have a bit of the ability as well. But it's something I think you bring with you into this life. I think it's something you've discovered and learned already in previous lives, and you bring it into this life. And if the body, hopefully you choose a body that, and a gene line that is capable of being able to support.
You choose your body, Craig.
Well, there might have been some choice in it, perhaps not by me, but by the spirit guides, perhaps, because I think you're destined to do mediumship.
Yeah.
I don't think it's something you choose to do.
No,
it's something that you're forced into almost. It was for me anyway. Like most things in life, actually, when I think about it. Noticing AI apps offering psychic readings with natal charts and astrology using chatbots to mimic human guidance. What's the spiritualism in that? Oh, well, I know what we're getting at here. This is like ChatGPT and things, which is really quite interesting to experiment with. For example, I tried laying out some tarot cards, this card, past, present, future, and then told ChatGPT, interpret what I've got, with past card being, the Tower or something, present card being the Ace of Cups, future card being whatever it is, the Star or something like that, and then ask it for an interpretation. This is the question I asked, and it's remarkable. It gives a really very, very clever interpretation. But it's like so much of what's happening with the readings out there anyway. I mean, most of the people doing readings or claiming to be psychics are not psychics. They're interpreters. They interpret what the card reads. So ChatGPT is going to wipe those people out. It's also going to do exactly the same for astrology in a lot of respects, because perhaps a bit wrong to say it completely, because there's a lot of intuitive knowledge that can also come into both these skills. But on basic astrology, it could be done with ChatGPT or any of the AI services. So it will give you, and if say it starts combining these things together, it can give quite a substantial reading based upon tarot cards and the rest of it. But what you really need, of course, is you've got to have the intuitive input. So if Jane and I are given a readings on a psychic level for people, okay, sometimes you put cards out and things like that, but it's what you see over and above what they're telling you. It's what your intuition says. The cards can't tell you your mother's name was Mabel, but intuition can give you that, or that it can give you that. So actually, I think, although ChatGPT, I think, could be easily misused by things like the phone psychic lines, some of the scam lines. They could probably blow people's brains out simply with pure non-psychic sort of readings, cold readings as the skeptics call it. I think it's going to force people to be much more discerning about the psychics they see, and know that actually and unfortunately people aren't, are they, Jane? But I mean, the thing is, people are going to have to start thinking, who really has got the gift, and start relying a bit more on face-to-face type readings and Zoom readings, and having to connect, because ChatGPT is going to wipe a lot of these skills away, because who needs someone who can just interpret cards? That is not a psychic, that's a card reader, and that's a very different thing to somebody that can just look at you and tell you things and pick up things and know things that have been going on in your past, present and future without any of these tools. So But saying that, you can use a tarot card. You might give the initial reading on the first few cards, but then the rest of it comes through clairvoyance. That's what a real reader does. They're not just interpreting the card. They're saying, oh, I see the Ace of Cups here. That means a new relationship. Have you just met someone called Sandy? Right? How would the card wouldn't tell I've just met someone called Sandy, but it might act as a tool. So the cards are tool, but they're interpretive tools. And I think it's going to change things greatly.
Right, now this is for Jane, Craig.
Yep, off you go, Jane.
Thank you. Is it true that when babies and children pass away, they stay the same age until their parents arrive in heaven to watch them grow? Well, I know for a fact that children, little ones, do grow up in the spirit realm, and they do wait for their parents, and very much it's as if babies grow, you know, in children, they don't stay the same age. They get to a certain age. They might get from a baby to a teenager, and they would recognise their parents the moment they made the transition over to the spirit realm, and only the parents would recognise that. But there's like little ones that go, but they don't come full term to the earth. You do have spiritual surrogate mothers over there that see to little ones like miscarriages, and little ones that have come to the earth plane through stillborn birth and that. So they still, the souls and the spirit does continue on. So I've known children to come through immediately to their parents. I do have a lot of mothers that have lost babies sent to me from Winchester Hospital, from maternity things, and it's a great joy when they describe what their parents put on them and everything, and they do continue on in the spirit realm. And it's a wonderful thing to think that, you know, that they will wait for their parents, so they're not going to grow to the 60, 70 or 80. They might grow to, they reach puberty. Have you got any thoughts on that?
I think you've covered a large part of it. I think the age in the spirit world is determined by what we see of the age of a person in spirit is what they show themselves to be. They show themselves to be as we knew them. A lot of people say that, you know, within spiritualism, that people live at their best age, as it, or what was their most, their prime, as it were. Where they were best as an older person, they were best as a child, they were best as a teenager. We do know that if an older person goes over to the spirit world, they do go back younger looking, so they don't have to need Botox or anything. Yeah, you can choose your age in the spirit world. It's a shame we can't do it here.
Well, it's nature, isn't it? We grow old.
Fortunately,
it's nature.
I look young all through my life.
Keep that mantra going. Right.
A bit more of a topical one. What's the future of UK political prisoners given harsh sentences for social media posts due to Starmer's policies? You heard about that? Did you hear about that?
No.
Well, what happened is Keir Starmer decided that he's going to chuck everybody out of jail because he would rather prosecute people for saying things on social media that cause social unrest and put them in jail over and above rapists and all the rest of it. So he would chuck out rapists, thieves and murderers into the community, or people with mental problems. That's a danger to the community. This is so wrong on many levels. And on top of that, when we had here we had some IT conference, he invited all the top names from IT conference, but not Elon Musk, because Elon Musk had insulted him or something at some point, I remember, and he spoke out about all this censorship that's going on, and just said, you're not invited, which is so personal and so stupid, because he's one of the leading lights in advancement of technology. Like him or not, he's a very important person, but this is when they start throwing politics into this. So what will happen with that? To be honest, I don't know what will happen, but I think if you just look at, say, my reaction or your reaction when I just told you about it, how you reacted, everybody else must feel the same. So they're going to have to rethink this. You can't. This is the thought police, isn't it? This is what happens when you get the sort of over liberal, although they're Labour here, they're called. But when you get that sort of thinking, it's all about rule making. This is the council culture again.
Unions, going back to
well,
the
we're going to get a lot of
70s.
that from Starmer. I'll tell you, we're going to see massive increases.
I don't think he's
in
going to
taxes.
last long, because I
Massive.
think the people will want him out.
I don't think the people that voted for him, fair dues. You vote for the person, that's fine. But you've got to go with what you say in your manifesto. But you don't go in and do the complete opposite. We won't put taxes up. We're not only going to put taxes up, we're going to borrow as well. Anyway, don't get me going. That's more for one for coffee with Craig, really. But yeah, thank you for that question. It's going to be interesting. I think there'll be a bit more of a backlash from this. This is, he's turning everybody into Assanges, isn't he, this way? Just disagree with me, put you in jail.
Right. Nina says lots of young children have psychic abilities but lose it when they start school. Why? Because education is very important, and when a child reaches 18, if they choose to go on that psychic path, then that's fine, but education's important. So you couldn't have a child in school keep picking up psychic things and psychokinesis and different things like this. So the education is very important.
Yeah, and I think a lot of this also comes just a natural way we evolve. It's not necessarily school, but by the time you've got to school, your kind of rational mind has started to change. When a child as a young age, up to the age of 6, has less of a strong sense of self-identity. About the age of 6, there's a big explosion in the child's change in the way they react to the world. And they're much more, I suppose you could say before that, much more receptive. They're absorbing information. They just naturally express things. So all sorts of psychic stuff, I think, particularly up to the age of 6 and around that age, that's when you suddenly start hearing children talking about previous lives and things, or they start quite naturally being able to pick up things, or even have miraculous abilities that's been written about. I've read quite a lot. Colin Wilson was brilliant talking about those type of things, and Lyle Watson too is worth reading on those things. But there's all sorts of stuff that happens, but it seems like 6 is a cutting off point. And then when you get to school as well, particularly you're round about the beginning of school ages, aren't you? But the more you in school with more rational thinking, more that type of thinking, then I think we kind of have suppressed our other side. The brain's got two sides to it, two ways of thinking. We've enhanced the rational thinking and let go of a lot of the intuitive thinking, which is a great shame. We should be developing both sides of our personalities. Jay?
I knew he was waiting for me.
Answer it if you like.
What happens when you have a miscarriage as early as 6 weeks? Well, we do know that little one has a soul, and that little one goes on, as I said, goes on to the spirit realm, and it's quite stressing for the mother knowing she's carrying a child. But sometimes, these things happen for a reason. Sometimes it might be that a woman's miscarriage because there might be something wrong in her genetics, or a body might have rejected it. And sometimes it might be that little one's come to save the mother. There's all kinds of things. And I think, a miscarriage is still stressful for any woman to go through. I mean, I've had a friend that's had 3, and you can imagine carrying a baby, and then you're so much looking forward to this and joy and bliss, and then suddenly losing that little one. But as early as 6 weeks, they do make the transition over to the spirit world. And as I said before, there's surrogate spiritual mothers over there that would receive those little ones. You got any thoughts?
Well, another point on it too is the question has been asked a lot within spiritualism a lot of the time, and asked of the spirit guides, particularly from the trance mediums, and in particular the spirit guide called Silver Birch, who's well worth reading if you can get a copy of the Silver Birch books. The Silver Birch, the spirit guide, was asked, when does the spirit enter the womb? At what point? Does the spirit enter the womb immediately the sperm is connected with the ovary, or is there another point? And the answer was given at the quickening. So it's the time of the quickening that the spirit enters the womb. That's what they said. So the spirit therefore would enter the womb at quite an early stage, if that's correct from what the spirit guide said. because there's often the influence of the own person, the medium's own thoughts can get in the way, even on the best of spirit guides. But that was one of the things that is certainly said within spiritualism on that, as far as I'm aware. And I think it came through other guides and things as well.
Right. Should mediums not drink alcohol? I don't think mediums should demonstrate in pubs, personally, and there's alcohol, because you might have somebody that sits in front of you that's been drinking and might be an addict or an alcoholic, and they've got problems, and it would harm the medium. And I don't think mediums should drink alcohol if they're doing readings. I think you need to be sensible. You know, drink water or drink herbal tea and that, but you shouldn't certainly have a substance like that, because you might attract things from the lower forms or lower entities that might take over. You shouldn't drink.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you 100% on both those points, actually. I think a medium's got to be very careful with alcohol. I think whatever, if we have genes for this, but I think there's a danger of a medium easily becoming addicted to alcohol. I think it's something to do with the genetic makeup of mediums. Some mediums did become alcoholics. There are cases of very good mediums who became alcoholics. So I think mediums got to be very careful about taking large and regular quantities of alcohol. That's not safe for them. I don't think it helps. How can it help? You've got to fine-tune your mind to be awake and aware and sensitive. Alcohol's a depressant. It does the opposite. It's not going to help mediumship, it'll make it worse. So I don't think it helps. It could attract the wrong stuff. And I certainly don't think people having a drink in front of you is good either, because if I've seen mediums demonstrating in pubs, and I think that's not a good environment for it. It's very, very difficult. Even though, saying that, when we did the Concord Club, people were drinking there, but not to excess.
They were drinking coffee,
so it is a difficult one, because a lot of the clubs open up to this. I don't want to be say what we, but generally, I don't think it's a good thing. I think really you need, because it's not just the medium that makes the connection to the spirit; it's the sitter too. It's the combination of the two of you. It's the medium's energy and the sitter's energy. And when those two energies are working together, the spirit can connect. But if you've got a half-cut sitter and you've got a wide-awake medium, or vice versa, it's not going to work. So 100%, I agree. I think I'm very, very, very careful with alcohol, both as its consumption generally and also at any form of mediumistic event.
Right. Good evening. Most mediums I've ever met tend to be single. Is there a reason for that, or just a coincidence? Well, I think that's just personal choice, really. And perhaps some women not been lucky enough to meet the right man.
No, most male mediums are gay.
It doesn't matter.
Spiritualism, I would have said 90%.
It doesn't matter if they are, Craig, long as they...
No, there's nothing wrong with that.
Long as they do good evidence, it doesn't matter. They're sensitive. But, most mediums I've ever met, I wouldn't say most mediums I've met are single. Some of them have had relationships, have been married, and perhaps they've been divorced or separated. But, but there again, you could have a very young medium starting from the age of 18 that's dedicated their life to service, to God, to do mediumship, and it's not interested in relationships or anything like that. But I think it depends on the medium, personally. Well,
I think with the mediums, like I said, 90% of the mediums within spiritualism are gay. That's nothing wrong with that. But also, from their point of view, they're not generally so bound by children and marriage and the rest of it. So they can go out and demonstrate and be their own free agent and do whatever they like. So going to theatres and the rest of it is not going to upset the kids and the families generally. I mean, things are changing more nowadays, the way things work. But certainly that's the way it's always worked within spiritualism. And I think there's a cliche, I suppose, but there's a certain sensitivity to gay people too, which allows them to do it.
Most mediums that a church we talked about years ago were retired mediums.
And retired
They
as
were
well.
retired, so they had all the time to do a Sunday service and things like that. And now we're seeing lots of mediums coming out with the woodwork on Facebook, using it as a platform, and TikTok. And half of them have never served or done a service in a spiritualist church.
The problem we've got is everybody suddenly wants to be a medium. I mean, when we were developing and working as mediums, we used to have to keep it quiet, because at that time it was a bit dodgy, I think a bit nutty. So you didn't let anybody know. You kept it quiet. I used to demonstrate in London so people didn't know I was a medium. We used to keep it quiet. Now it's gone the other way round, where every Tom, Dick and Harry's a medium, unfortunately. And AI, as that earlier question said, is going to become a medium as well. One for me, is it? Craig, do you believe it's better to be a vegetarian if you're a medium? Sybard has talked about a sattvic, ragistic and tamasic food. Well, yeah, absolutely, I suppose so. But you might have seen we did a one on vegetarianism, the last video the other day. Really good interview. Have a look. Actually, Alexander, was a nice. You've probably seen it because I know you follow the channel a lot. I don't personally think it's necessary by any means. A lot of mediums are vegetarians, but I think vegetarianism, I think each of us has a different makeup to our bodies, and each person is different. I personally have to eat meat because I need to keep my red blood cells up for certain reasons. But nonetheless, I still think I actually thrive better on a meat diet. And I know people think, oh, you can't be a spiritual if you're not vegetarian. Well, that's not the case. The nature of the world is that there's life and death. The Dalai Lama, so some of you don't like the Dalai Lama because of the silliness that was shown on recently by the Chinese propagandists, but that he eats meats. The Inuits, I think they call them now, the Eskimos is the wrong word, Inuit, fish. Isn't it? They eat fish and can't eat. Well, you're not going to be able to sort of eat a leek when you're in the Arctic, are you? You're going to have to eat what's available.
I personally wouldn't eat red meat.
And shamans eat meat.
I wouldn't eat red meat.
I don't think. I think we eat too much of it, and I think we eat too much fat, and we eat too much salt, and we eat too much sugar.
There's too much processed foods.
And we also, those foods, as you say, Alexander, they are tamasic. Meat is a tamasic thing, which means it's a dark and heavy one, and it does mean that, for example, when you're doing meditation, you've eaten meat, the meat will hold your vibration back quite a lot. And the first long period of your meditation is just clearing the tamasic energy. So I'm sure a sattvic diet is good. I try to eat a lot of fruit because I think fruit is one of the things that is very what you call sattvic. It's full of high quality, high energy life force. So perhaps I balance mine out because of that. But it's a difficult question, I think, vegetarianism, but people do get a bit over-moralised on it, I think, sometimes, and I don't think that's necessarily necessary. But junk food... Yeah.
When I tap into my intuition, the first quiet thought feels right, but my rational mind soon takes over. Frustratingly, is there a meditation to quiet the mind, or should I just tell to hush? I think... For me, meditation is sitting still and being quiet, and I have all those candles around, don't I, Craig? And just shutting the outside world. Some people might do meditation with mantras, or some might do with music. It depends what you're looking for, but to quiet the mind and not overthink, not be monkey mind, where your mind's racing 20 to the dozen. It's very difficult in the 21st century to shut the mind off when there's so much going on in the world in the 21st century. But I think it's better if you are quiet and just shut the outside world. Some people might go and sit in the middle of the woods or on a tree trunk and just feel nature, the birds singing. Everything is personal. What's right for you might not be right for somebody else. But quiet the mind and shut the mind down, and don't let thoughts racing into your mind, and very much be still and know thyself.
There's quietening the mind, and there's quietening the mind as well, of course, because when we say a quiet mind, there's still thought there, so we can allow thought to go quiet. Most of that can be done by observation of thought, just observing it, and this is the thought, and that's not me. I'm the observer of the thought, therefore that thought is not me. So we observe and observe and observe. And the objective of yoga is for the mind to sink into or become part of the Brahman. It's to become one with the Absolute, and that means no thought. That means no self, we could say, where the Atman and Brahma become one. So that's the objective of the higher qualities and things that Patanjali taught, is for the mind to slip into the absolute stillness of existence. That is the higher levels. But on the levels we're talking about here, a quieter, gentler mind, certainly very good for mediumistic, a quieter mind. But for the mind to completely stop is another thing altogether, which is part of the teachings, of the higher teachings of yoga in particular.
This is for you.
Okay, what's this? I really enjoyed Craig's predictions on Harry and Meghan, but it was still very sad to hear. I was also happy he'd found someone just for him. I was also so happy he'd found someone just for him. What does that bit mean?
Well, what I think it means, you were saying that the marriage is going to finish and that you found somebody else.
Oh yes, I said about Harry meeting. Have you seen that video?
No, I haven't.
Well, it'll be interesting to hear your thoughts.
I got enough of you in the daytime without watching your prediction. Well, I think we all know where it's heading, and I think it's going to be a very slow process, because remember, we've got royal children connected to Harry, so it won't be easy. But we don't. At the end of the day, it is what it is. I mean, he fell in love very quickly with this girl, and she did seem to test the royal family beyond anybody. Remember, she's been married twice as well, hasn't she? I mean, if we go back years ago, she wouldn't have been allowed to marry somebody from the royal family.
No, I've said on that video that I found it was imminent. It's coming up very soon. Do you feel it's close now, or do you feel it's a bit further away?
I think we've got a way to go, because if you've read the news, you can see that they're going on separate outings and separate events and things. So it begins now. Will Harry and Meghan divorce? What will happen to the children of Prince Harry? Well, I suppose they would have to co-parenting. That's what they call it now, isn't it?
Call it what?
Co-parenting the children.
Well, there's two lots of laws. That's one of the things I found interesting, because I mean, the royal family have a sort of in English law.
Yeah, but they're not in England.
They have a sort of precedent that the royal family more or less can dictate what the children do. But in America, of course, the laws are going to be completely different. I saw coming a real major legal conundrum. Because is it American law that applies, or is it English law that applies? And I said Trump would intervene.
Weren't they born
when
here?
He becomes president,
they were born in the UK.
A few people. Sorry?
They were born in the UK.
Yes, they were.
So therefore, the royal
but they live
family,
in America and be brought up in America
but there
American
again,
mother.
if they were born in this country, then the royal family would have a say in
I
their
think one thing
upbringing.
you can predict is it's going to be an absolute minefield if and when it happens. So I predict. Well, we both said that we feel that the Harry and Meghan is heading for divorce. We were saying that right from the start, weren't we? We've been saying it lots of times. And so I just feel it's coming a bit closer now. There are a few rumours out there. I noticed people have been saying that there was somebody posted to say that he'd actually been to Harry had even started to file something or other, but
well,
I don't
know.
know.
How do they know that?
Well, I don't know. I think that's just the rumour mill, but who knows? But some local paper, someone said, or so.
Oh,
So
right.
anyway, I mean,
It's
there's
just
always
pure
speculation. But I get the feeling before now, and this is the time of year when things go wrong.
Christmas time, especially.
Unfortunately, for relationships. And I get a feeling the people are looking for a new turning point in the new year. And I just felt, I just feel it's going to happen very soon, between now and Christmas. And I even felt very soon. I even thought possibly the 5th of November. I said, because I saw fireworks when I tuned in. But anyway, we'll wait and see. I might be wrong. We don't get it all right, but we get quite a lot right.
I think they will divorce, and I feel that Harry, will be quite explosive as well. It's not going to be as simple as she thinks, because I feel he will turn. The worm will turn grey.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think Meghan's going to be nothing without Harry. I mean, she's been the one in control, but once if Harry did come back to Britain, which I think he would eventually do after a period of travel, I said, and then go back via the Spencers, and just gradually start to take on odd royal duty like
I don't think William's going to be so forgiving to him.
Be put right
or Kate.
Out. He'd have to do it before Charles dies. It would never happen otherwise.
I don't know.
So he's got to do it that way, and I think it will happen. But what a mess it is, really, isn't it? And that's supposed to be the royal family is the family symbolic of Britain as a family, really. And it's like everything's fallen to bits there, isn't it? Very sad, really. And speculating about it, of course, everybody's speculating about it. And it will seem sad to speculate on someone's divorce, but there we go. Craig and Jane, what signs or messages should we look for to know when a spirit is trying to communicate with us?
Well, for example, you might walk in a room and a light might flash on and off. And I've known suddenly a television to suddenly come on. It might be a person's favourite programme they watched, or suddenly you might get a feeling or a sense of warmth come over you, or you might suddenly hear a voice and swear it's that loved one that you can hear. That's trying to communicate with you. And I feel you need to have an open mind, not a closed mind, and just go with your senses.
Yeah, I agree with pretty much all of that. I mean, particularly electrical things. I mean, things like seeing a white feather doesn't mean an angel's been by, frankly. It means there's a dove been by.
Wipe those white feathers off your shoulder.
I mean, we do get synchronisations, like butterflies landing on the coffin
Robins.
And things like that, and all those type of things. I think those things do happen. We get those really odd coincidences. But like I said, I wouldn't overread into symbols. But like Jane says, well, sometimes you will get things happening. Often electrical devices go wrong, like it did last week trying to get this show on the road, didn't it?
It's gremlins.
You get the gremlins in the work. And I think it very often happens when you're doing mediumship with people, definitely. And even hearing sounds in the room, we've had sometimes, haven't we? Had all sorts of weird sounds come in the room.
Nothing can frighten you. You just, if you ever get frightened, to ask it to leave or go away.
Yeah. So I think the spirit communicates from mind to mind. It's like a form of telepathic communication, really. If you want to communicate with the spirit, let your mind go quiet and look within. What are you feeling? What has been shown to you? What feelings do you get? That's how it has to work. And developing mediumship, you really do need to sit in a circle, really, to do that. But that's a whole new
That's
question.
a lovely name. That's Sapphire and Blue Jeans. Did my brother know I was at his deathbed? Was he the red bird that was trying to talk to me for 3 days?
Well, I can't do that with actually getting in the zone and tuning in and doing it as a mediumistic demonstration. But
well, if whoever's meant to be around somebody when they die is meant to be there, sometimes people don't make it to the hospital or make it to where a person is in a nursing home. And whoever's meant to be there to help that person make their transition over to the spirit realm will be there. That's all I can say.
And I think I would say pretty much definitely he would know that you were at his deathbed, because I mean, once you hit the spirit world, you see it all, and you would even be shown that you'd be given one of the things I feel that you can do in the spirit world is replay the past. Strangely enough, this could be another talk, not just remember the past, but replay the past, almost like a video recording. So he would know all what happened. You get an insight into all these things. So definitely know. The red bird, well, that could be symbolic. Often you do get all sorts of strange things happen at a death, but they don't come as the red bird. The red bird would be like a kind of a symbol that he's there, but he would be there in the spirit. He would be in the spirit itself.
It is an old superstition that before somebody dies, like a bird will fly through a wall and all that, because my mother's a great believer. If you see a robin in a tree, you're just walking past. Do you remember when you went to Longley? She said, that's a messenger, someone's going to die. And 3 days after, Auntie Dolly died.
Yeah, the robin was supposed to be a sacred bird because it got its red breast because it pulled the thorns from Christ's head. Yeah. All sorts of strange stories like that there are around. But I mean, they're superstitions. But even so, these superstitions, there are strange synchronicities, as I call it, or strange coincidences that happen. I mean, my family's been plagued by the weirdest of superstitions I've talked about before. But and I think these do play a role, particularly at the time of a death for some reason. And even if you sort of are skeptic and deny it, often you get the weirdest of things happen that seem to be a sign that life goes on. So take it as a good sign that life goes on. And actually, Sapphire, know that your brother would definitely know that you were there. And even if people who worry because they don't make it to the deathbed, you know, and he died before I got there, 2 minutes before I got there, he died, you know, he didn't want to see me. People worry about things like that. Don't worry about it. They can see it from the spirit world. It's us that place too much importance on those things because we worry about our grief and being able to, you know, that they knew that we loved them and so forth. But they know it and they can see it, and they, like I say, they can replay all that it has been and all that will be.
That's very interesting, isn't it? Victor, do you think extraterrestrials will start to make more of an appearance soon? I saw...
Testicles, she said, but
I didn't say testicles. I did not say that. I didn't say that. That's your mind, because I speak beautiful, better than you. You're jealous. But I was reading, I think in the Daily Mail yesterday, Craig, that somebody caught something on the iPhone. Like there was they tried to say it was flares in the sky, but there was red, orange lights, and there was a great big object they felt like a mile long, and they thought that was to do with UFOs.
Yeah,
and they've caught it on camera.
I mean, who knows? I mean, I'll tell you one thing though. If Trump becomes president,
You wait when
which
you
I
get
can
home
say,
saying that to me.
Funny, I'm catching you out, I think. If Trump becomes president, as I predict, and I think you think the same too, Jane, don't you? And most psychics think the opposite, mind you. But he says he's going to open all the files, the whole lot, the X files. He's going to open the whole lot. It's Trump. So we'll get to know all what's been
I think there has been a lot
us.
Illuminati going on.
But there's a hell of a lot they've not said. Obviously, if they had alien technology, they're not going to tell anybody, because you know, if you got that, you've got warfare equipment, haven't you? You're one step ahead of everybody else. But I think if we did have alien technology, we'd be a lot more advanced than we are now, even with the advances we are getting. Will they make more? Have they been? Will they? I think they. I'm a believer in the ancient alien theory. I think we had a connection with ancient aliens, but I don't think, excuse me, it worked in the same way people think. People think of it as craft travelling from one place to another. I think the way to travel between the stars would be quite different. Something we've not even been able to get our heads around at all. It's some interdimensional type of travel. And I think that interdimensional sort of travel would be more, probably work on the level of consciousness, where we can connect.
States.
We can connect just like we connect with the spirit world. Perhaps there's some way for us to connect with people in other places and other planets and things. It's certainly written in the Naadi that there's other planets and that are inhabited. It's written in the Puranas and it's written in so many ancient texts.
Well, all these swamis say that we all come from Mars.
Yeah, but I don't think it's like the flying saucers or even the spaceships type of thing. I think it's done in a different way. And would they make an appearance in? They're not going to tell us, are they? I wouldn't know that. How could I? How would a person develop their mediumship? My granddaughter sees dead people, but would like to develop it further.
Well, she's developed it, hasn't she? She's seen dead people.
Well, she's already on the way, isn't she? I mean, there's a whole load. If you become a patron, right? I'm making a whole series of videos at the moment that I'm putting up there as often as I can about how to develop mediumship. I'm going through the whole thing about sharing different techniques. I hope to put quite a lot of videos up on that if I can find the time. Try to get them into the hundreds of videos if we're lucky. But lots of techniques to help you to teach you. So have a look in the description of the video. You could become a patron, or it's also put on the independently put on also onto the YouTube membership thing. But if you want to develop mediumship, that's great. You can develop with help the teachings, but ultimately you really do need to sit to be a medium, and that means sitting in a circle. Sadly, there's very, very few of them around now. Spiritualism is fading rapidly, in my opinion, which is a great sadness, and the teaching aspect has faded away a lot. Very few mediums are teaching. I used to teach for years and years and years, circles and things to help develop other mediums, and it's a massive amount of work the medium has to put in, and then a lot of the people don't even develop their mediumship and don't even follow it through, and you think you put all these years of work into trying to get that person to develop their mediumship, and they start getting there, and so many are called but few are chosen. And very, very few people actually do go on to be fully mediumistic, even if they got quite a strong gift at some point in life, you know. And like Woody Allen said, the art of success is turning up. 99% of the art of success is turning up. And people, we have to put a lot a lot of work, hours and hours of development time in meditation and sitting in circles, which they did in the Edwardian and Victorian times. They didn't have TV. They'd sit every single night for mediumship. They'd have a circle every night of the week and sit there just sitting to develop mediumship. And that's why we had physical mediumship and the table tilting and all sorts of incredible stuff developing. So look into spiritualism if you're in the UK particularly. This also is in America, and see if you can find a spiritualist church where you can sit. It's too young perhaps for your granddaughter, depends on her age, but that's where you need to begin.
I think also what's most important, they've got to sit longer than 6 weeks. Some have to sit as long as 7 years.
Yeah, I say that. People say, "Oh, I've said to you before, and I've said it here before. I think people used to come to my circle and they say, Craig, I've been coming to you now for 6 weeks and I'm still not ready to go out and start earning money with this." I think, oh, for goodness sake, you can't. 7 years. I think it's 7 years. And then when you've done the 7 years, you're at step 1. Then you've got to do another 15 years demonstrating the spiritualist church from the platform, really, before you're ready to really be in a state where you should be allowed to put it forward to the general public on a bigger scale.
I can do it on Zoom, but I wouldn't be able to do it in a church. They obviously weren't ready.
You've got to be able to do it face to face. You've got to do it one-to-one readings. You've got to be able to do it to an audience. You've got to be able to stand up in front of you've got to be prepared to stand up in front of a spiritualist audience and look an absolute idiot because it's not come through. You've got to go through all the struggles with it, and until you've developed the mediumship and it comes naturally, and people seem to think now that they get one little bit of evidence, and next thing you know, they want to go on TV, and they can't even give names, they can't give any real details. I'm sounding like an old man.
You are an old man.
Why has everyone turned against me since my father's died? Do others experience this? Quite painful.
He sounds very grieved.
Yeah, I think it's part of the bereavement process. I mean, I've known people, it might be because people are scared to face up to the whole idea of death. I mean, we had a good friend, and people used to cross the road and try to avoid her and not speak to her because she had such a tragic loss of her husband that nobody was prepared to speak to her, but not because they didn't like her or anything like that, but it was just too painful to talk about. They were so worried about talking about the painful, awful death that had occurred to her at such a young age. And it's like people could not face up to it. So maybe, remote viewpoint, maybe people are just a little bit too scared to approach you because they're worried about the depth of your bereavement and their inability to talk about it, rather than turn against you. And people do get funny at times of death too, and fight amongst each other.
In the West, they don't quite understand it. Indian people understand it more, and most of the different places around the world. But it seems to be the West cannot deal with death.
We had to find it hard. And one of the first reactions to, there's the stages of bereavement, which is disbelief. You just don't believe it's happened, which quite often will turn to another stage, which is anger about what has happened, and people take it out on each other. That's why very often at the time of a death, people become quite illogical and start blaming everybody else for everything. And instead of coming together and grieving together, they fight and families fall out. And it happens in even the best of families. You get one person usually that just gets twisted up by it and thinks everybody's against them because they can't cope with their own dealing with it. And it happens all the way through. We see it all the time in the work we do. But we are coming. The big hand is pointing to the 12. So we're coming to the end of this evening's show, Jane. And thanks for all of you joining us. Don't forget, become a patron, guys. Have a look in the description below to support what we do. It helps our channel, helps us to find the time to do this, helps us to actually buy some time for us to actually be able to get on the screen for you and make all these programs and have the time to be able to do this. So either become a patron or become a YouTube member. Either helps us. The patron side, you'll be able to it's indexed a bit more, some of the stuff. Like I say, I'm building a course on there on the pages so that you can start to learn to develop mediumship. But really, people just do this just to support the channel. You pay for Netflix, can you do a little bit for our channel too to help us keep going and build it into something more and more? And there's a few of the patrons running across the bottom of the screen at the moment too for you. Thank you guys. Thank you for all of those that support the channel. So, shall we say goodbye?
And thank you for listening to us. Have a great weekend, though it's raining here in Winchester. And look after yourselves.
So we'll see you
Ciao.
soon. Bye for now.
They're the real deal, and they're really sweet. Like, you can tell they come from a place of love, which is very endearing.
I know. You know a charlatan, and especially in Los Angeles, you know when you're meeting shady people. These guys are the real deal, no doubt. Yeah.
Everything about the reading was just spot on, down to the colour. She gave the colour blue, which was very prominent because we wore blue to the funeral and it was his favourite colour. So I've seen a lot of mediums before. I was very impressed with them.
Very, very good connection. I couldn't believe the connection I got tonight.
Definitely, we're definitely talking to our loved ones.
Mm-hmm. He said about the photograph, well, I had all them, and he said to me, you've got that in your bag. And I did. I had everything in my bag, they said. When I went outside for a break, and I said to Carol, they know things that nobody else knows.
And where was I up the back there?
She was spot on. Everything was right. It all meant a lot to me. She had my father's name, everything, things about my brother. There's been problems with my brother. And I'm so glad to hear of them both. My father, he was doing this. I'm just glad he's friends with me because things happened. It's all just a bit emotional.